From Keene in the Shire, the Liberty Media capital of the world, this is Daryl W. Perry, host of FPP Radio News for Saturday, October 7th, 2017. Silver's trading at $16.83 per ounce. Gold is valued at $1,276 per ounce. Bitcoin is trading at 5.2 cents, and the average price of Bitcoin is $4,369. Antiwar.com reports Saudi Arabia is complaining after winding up on the UN blacklist for violence against children in war zones related to their attacks on Yemen. The report blamed the Saudi-led coalition in Yemen for at least 683 child casualties in 2016. Saudi officials complained their inclusion was misleading but offered no evidence to the contrary. Saudi Ambassador Abdullah al-Mualimi insists the Saudi warplanes exercised the maximum degree of care, which is a claim that is unlikely to convince anybody. Since attacking Yemen in 2015, the Saudis have been implicated in a massive number of civilian deaths in airstrikes against populated areas. Repeated attacks against schools, oftentimes repeatedly hitting the same school multiple times, underscores the risk children are under during the air war. It was the same sort of maximum care that landed the Saudis on the same list last year, though after browbeating the UN for a few days, they were temporarily removed pending an investigation. There's no sign the investigation ever happened, and then Secretary General Ban Ki-moon complained the Saudis were exerting undue influence on the list. Saudi threats to defund the UN and support from the U.S. got them off that list last year, but it remains to be seen if they'll be able to pull the same trick again a year later after countless more deaths and countless more reports on reckless targeting. For over 40 years, Roberts & Roberts Brokerage has been a trusted source for buying and selling precious metals like gold and silver. And as a Bitcoin-preferred business, Roberts & Roberts Brokerage has removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in the digital currency. Call Roberts & Roberts Brokerage today for knowledgeable advice on buying and selling precious metals and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 800-874-9760 or visit online at rrbi.co. Reuters reports the vice chairman of a voter fraud panel set up by U.S. President Donald Trump began soon after the election to draft legislative changes that would allow states to require voters to prove their citizenship when registering. Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach, who had been on the panel since its creation in May, exchanged emails on the matter with Trump's transition team the day after the November presidential election, according to records unsealed by a federal judge on Thursday. Kobach, who like Trump is a Republican, was ordered to release the records as part of a legal challenge that has enjoined a state law that required Kansans to prove citizenship when registering to vote. The records showed that by the day after the election, Kobach had already started drafting legislative changes that would permit all states to impose proof of citizenship requirements by amending the National Voter Registration Act, which lets Americans register to vote when they apply for a driver's license. The records shed light on a photograph taken several days after the election that showed Kobach, then a contender for a cabinet post, standing with Trump and holding a document partially obscured by his arm entitled Department of Homeland Security Kobach Strategic Plan for the First 365 Days. Kobach fought the public release of the documents for months in federal court, which included a heavily redacted version of the documents in the photograph. Any changes to the National Voter Registration Act or the Motor Voter Law does require congressional approval. Civil rights groups said they fear Kobach is using the Trump voting panel to drum up fake proof of widespread non-citizen voter fraud to persuade Congress to change the law. Trump has said, without any evidence, that there was widespread voter fraud in the November election. Most state election officials and election law experts say U.S. voter fraud is rare. Del Ho, director of the Voting Project at the American Civil Liberties Union, said requiring people to show birth certificates or other proof of citizenship when registering would be overly burdensome and would discourage young people such as college students. The ACLU sued Kobach over the Kansas law, which it said blocked more than 35,000 people, nearly 14% of new registered voters, from voting in the last 2 years. In 1999, Daryl W. Perry began a search for traditional values, which led him down a path to the ideas of liberty. He tells the story in A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty. Of the book, Dr. Brian Sovereign says, "Sometimes it's funny, and sometimes I think it's crazy, but it's always authentic." Ask for A Rebel's Journey wherever books are sold, or visit arebelsjourney.com. This has been FPP Radio News, online at fppradio.com.